Excuse me. Good morning. Um,
Morning.
I'm Harry Ricker, and this is I forget what day. What day is today? April the 13th. April
Yes.
13th of 2025. And this is the Cosmology discussion group meeting. I started the recording. Vladimir is going to give a little talk to us this morning. And so you can go ahead, share screen, and I'll approve it, and we can get started.
Okay, let's start because I have my plan I will share with you. Okay. Guys, let's start from the beginning. What is my proposal right now? I will read my paper as it published in the journal by sections. Section one, two, and after each section, you will ask any question about this section. When we'll finish all the sections, then I will answer all your other questions. It will be much easier to comment it, and it will be much more productive for you and for me to read the text section. It's one page, maybe not more. And then you will ask questions about this page. And then we will continue by one. What do you think about this procedure? Because it seems to me it will be the most important for you to see the text and ask the question about the text of the same of some section one, two, three, and so on and so on. If you agree, then let me start. The title: Four Spatial Dimension World Universe Cosmology. Abstract. This article represents the culmination of decade-long effort to develop the world universe cosmology, building upon a series of published works. These include the first one, 5D world universe model, space-time energy, and the last one, GWST discoveries and the hypersphere world universe model, transformative new cosmology. Both features in the Journal of High Energy Physics, Gravitation, and Cosmology. WC is a unified model of the world built around the concept of the cosmic medium, composed of particles, protons, electrons, photons, neutrinos, and universe-created particles. WC provides a mathematical framework that enables precise calculation of medium-bound physical parameters: gravitational parameter, Hubble's parameter, absolute age of the world, intergalactic plasma parameters, temperature of microwave background radiation, and the minimum energy of photons. This paper aligns WC with the theoretical framework developed by Weston and Overdoing, albeit assigning a new physical meaning to the fourth spatial coordinate associated with the total energy of observable world. Introduction. In 1937, Paul Dirac proposed a new basis for cosmology, the hypothesis of variable gravitational constant, and later in 1974 added the notion of continuous creation of matter in the world. In 1983, Paul Weston developed 5D space-time mass theory that associates the fourth spatial coordinate x4 with the rest mass of particles and gravitational constant. The gravitational constant serves as a dimension transposing parameter. According to Oviduin and Wesson in 1994, a fifth dimension might be associated with the rest mass via this equation. The chief effect of this new coordinate on four-dimensional physics was that particle rest mass, usually assumed to be constant, varied with time. It is worth noting that in WC, the gravitational parameter g is inversely proportional to time, and this chief effect do not arise. You see, it was his drawback of his model that mass must change. On the contrary, mass constant, but g parameter, gravitational parameter, going inverse proportional to tau. Overdoing and Wesson postulated that metrics which do not depend on x4, it's a fourth spatial coordinate, can give rise only to induced matter composed of massless photons. This is the case of the Big Bang model. While those which depend on X4 give back equations of state for fluids composed of massive particles. This is the case of WC. You see, it's a principle different. If you stay with Big Bang model, you have only massless photons, massless neutrinos, and all this stuff. It's not the case. On the contrary, all of these particles, they have so-named mass or rest energy in my notation. WC supplies this fluid that Overdoing and Besson have predicted. It is, in fact, the cosmic medium of the observable world. According to WC, empty space doesn't exist. Instead, all observable world is filled with cosmic medium that consists of particles with rest energy, protons, electrons, photons, neutrinos, and universe-created particles. The intergalactic voids discussed by astronomers are, in fact, examples of cosmic medium in its purest. Consequently, the cosmic medium of observable world, as described by WC, can serve as further evidence in favor of the fourth spatial dimension views of WC. WC follows these ideas, albeit introducing a different mechanism of matter creation and the fourth spatial coordinate associated with the total energy of observable world, which is a 3D Hubble bubble. This is the first section I finished. If you have any questions, please ask about this section, and then we'll produce with the next one. Okay, let me continue.
I'm not
Fundamental.
I'm not sure that the lack of questions implies that people understand what you said.
No, people, this is the smartest people in our group. I'm very sorry, man. All these guys, I bet you they know what I'm talking about.
Okay, so
And I've done even my comment.
So presumably X1, X2, and X3 are spatial dimensions?
Yes, we have 3D observable world. It's a Hubble bubble. That's it. And X4, it's a fourth coordinate. We cannot feel it. We are bodies. We have people. We have only 3D in our mind. That's so why,
X4,
but what is
important? Isn't actually a spatial coordinate then, is that correct?
It's a spatial. This is the most important part. Let me tell you, by the way, guys, most of the time they are talking Big Bang model, it's a four-dimensional space-time. Absolutely wrong. Because time with this imaginal unit, it's not time. It's a four manifold. Four manifold. It's geometry. It's mathematics. It's not a physics. That's why not only my Paul Wesson fourth dimension, my fourth dimension, it's a spatial dimension, because only spatial dimension can provide us with massive particles. Only. If you have your massive particle, you have no choice. You have to take it. And Wesson showed you 50 years ago about this, or 40 years at least. And okay, what is important?
Let me interrupt you here. So time, you don't consider time to be a dimension, is that correct?
We will show in my last section that this fourth dimension, we can put C tau. C, it's a gravity dynamic constant, and tau is our cosmological time. Yes, at the very end, you will see it's proportional to our cosmological time. Yes, but it's without imagined unit. I see that. In my case, it is C tau. But let's continue later. We will come back to in the last my section, and we will talk about it later. But what is important? It's a real spatial dimension, and it's proportional C tau. It's exactly it's proportional to R. It's a radius of curvature, and now is the time, we can name it as time dimension. It's not time dimension. Dimension is proportional to C tau. It's better to tell in such words.
I
Tau
have a
is
question.
absolute. It's all the space has the same tau, the same cosmological time. That's why it's a fourth spatial dimension, and let's name it only fourth spatial dimension. But value is might be c tau. We will see it at the very last my section.
Why do you rename intergalactic space as a what is that? A cosmic medium. What's wrong with just the term that everyone else uses, which is intergalactic space?
Intergalactic plasma, I have it. I don't know what does it mean intergalactic space. There is no space. If you don't have your particles, if you have no cosmic medium, you cannot even introduce space. There is no space. You must have your cosmic medium, and only then you can talk about time, space, and gravitation. We will come back to this issue later. Guys, let's talk about section by section. That's why, because
Well, you introduced cosmic medium in this section, and I'm wondering how is your concept different from other astronomer, from astronomy, which talks about intergalactic space, its properties, its density, and so forth. You seem to be giving it another name, and then you seem to be throwing in the word plasma here as well. And I'm wondering, what is the motive to do this? Just to create more names for the same things, or is the thing you're talking about different from what all the other astronomers are talking about?
astronomers, they are talking about intergalactic space. It's filled with what? I'm asking you. You know, it's your definition absolutely wrong. I don't know what do you mean. In my case, cosmic medium, I put you
I haven't
exactly the
provided any
particles
definition.
saturating this medium.
I haven't provided any definition.
Okay, we're talking about this one right now. If you don't provide, you have criticized my the definition. Tell me about the other one.
I
What do
haven't
you mean
criticized your
intergalactic
definition.
space?
I haven't
What
criticized
does
your
it mean?
definition. I'm asking
Okay,
why you
Jim.
define a new term for something that astronomers all agree exists, which is intergalactic space. That's all.
Okay, if you're astronomer and you know what does it mean intergalactic space, give me the definition of your intergalactic space.
Well, it's basically a very sparse volume with very low energy content. Very few particles.
There is no
per
meaning
cubic
for your
meter.
words at all. Jim, please stop asking the question. Let's go to the end and then we will talk about your questions. Please go with section by section. Let's go. Because, you know, it was once my talk with you about everything at once. I propose you to go with sections.
So basically,
section
you're
one,
conceding
section two.
you don't have an answer to the question. Okay.
Yes, I don't have answer for you because you don't know what you're talking about. I'm very sorry.
So now we're
Intergalactic
pulling
space,
rank.
nobody knows what does it mean.
This is what we
Except
call
you.
Vlad fatigue.
Harry, please manage this meeting because you know it was once already. James, he doesn't want to listen to me. If you don't want, go away, Jim, because let's continue my test. And then you will talk about your imaginations.
Well, Harry asked for questions and I asked the question. That's all. And
He's
you
asking the
are
question.
unable to answer it.
I think what Jim is asking is why do you need a cosmic medium? And
since with no cosmic medium, there
that's-
is nothing. There is no space. There is no time. There is no gravitation. This is a principal point of my model, guys. I'm talking about 20 times with you without any, I don't know, any result.
Okay.
Without cosmic medium,
I tend to agree with what you're saying, Vladimir, which is I think this is a fundamental question about that defines what you're trying to do, and I kind of understand what you're trying to do, but I don't think Jim really grasps the issue. What you're trying to do, you're contrasting your model against the current model. So you have to have different terminology because your model isn't the current Big Bang concept. So you have different terminologies to describe what's going on. Does that make sense to you, Jim?
You're absolutely
I'm just
right.
wondering why. I'm just wondering why in the very first section we don't have the postulate that there is no space, there's no time, and there are these things that Vladimir is asserting don't exist.
Okay,
There
well, I
is
think
no,
that's-
you know, you are in a hurry as usual, James. Let me show you something.
Well, I think basically he's going to talk about that in the next section. So let's see what he has to say about it.
Let's go with the Thank you so much for your comment. You're absolutely right. Harry, as usually, you're a very good translator between myself and our group of people, especially with Jim. Because intergalactic space, nobody knows what does it mean. Cosmic medium, it's a principal point of my model. Jim, let me remind you that Big Bang model has vacuum only. There is no intergalactic space. You cannot, with Big Bang model, to go with any particles that have masses. Forget it. I told you in introduction, I told you about this the theory of vessel. He, theoretical guy,
Why don't
he
you
built
start
his
with that?
model and showed that vacuum doesn't have any particles. It's not, doesn't work at all. And you're asking about something, why? Harry, you're absolutely right. Let's go with, I propose a
Okay,
new definitions for a new theory of cosmology. You're
okay, all right.
absolutely right.
I understand. So let's just talk a little bit about you're going into the Big Bang model here, and
Right now.
and you're proposing a cosmology that's different from the existing way of thinking about the universe. And that's not really made clear in the beginning. So now we're just kind of getting into it.
Yes. And it will be conclusion. You will see in conclusion, I will put all of it.
All right. We know what the Big Bang model is. So let's just skip over the Big Bang model. We already know that. What is WUC?
Because it's very important to show the difference between Big Bang model and my model.
But we
right now.
already know that. Okay.
No, Jim, he doesn't know. That's why he is asking this question.
Well,
it's not me, Vladimir. It's the majority of astrophysicists in this world. You can just Google intergalactic space, and there's a whole lot of people that have a lot to say about it. And you're saying that it doesn't even exist. I think you should start there. You're saying that everything astrophysicists are saying is totally wrong.
That's not exactly correct, Jim. What he's saying is that he's using a different terminology to talk about it. Because he has a different concept of how the universe is created, whereas the Big Bang is based
I think he's saying, in all due respect, Harry, I think he's saying more than I have a different terminology. He's saying, he just said, rewind the recording. He said that space doesn't exist.
I don't think that's what he's saying. I think what he's saying.
I told you one more time. Without cosmic medium, it doesn't exist. First of all, it must be cosmic medium, and only then you can introduce these notions. This is the point.
So you have.
How many times I told you about this, and you don't want to accept it?
Rabbit out of the hat and saying that intergalactic space doesn't exist, except if you accept the rabbit I'm pulling out of a hat.
Now, what he's saying is that what is created isn't space in the sense that currently they think of space as this empty nothing thing. It's just geometry. He's saying that what's created is the cosmic medium. It's his model creates a cosmic medium, which is what astronomers.
Well, could I observe that you seem to shy away, Vladimir, from the use of the term ether? You use cosmic medium instead. Is that correct?
Ether is a perfect liquid. There is no perfect liquid too. This is the point. You're absolutely right.
Hold
I'm
on,
sorry.
hold on. What did you say there before?
I didn't
Something
get it.
about liquid or something? Ether is what?
Perfect liquid. In Big Bang model, sometimes they use this notion, perfect liquid. But
Perfect
first of all,
liquid.
the
All right.
energy density
Perfect.
is so small. There is no liquid. There is no liquid. There is no space. What does it mean, empty space? Do you know, guys? What? Give me the definition. Empty space. What does it mean?
So
Doesn't mean anything.
so the three dimensions in your theory, the first three dimensions don't exist then?
Dimension, three dimensions. It's only mathematics. I'm asking you as a physicist, what does it mean, space, in your brains, in your mind? What does it mean, space?
A volume in which you can put things.
You cannot introduce notion volume if you don't have the three coordinates with some sizes with something. Three coordinates with in your mind, it's geometry only. There is no physics. There is no physics. Empty space doesn't exist. You're absolutely right.
So you're saying that all the Euclidean physicists don't know what they're talking about. Okay.
Well, Jim, are you familiar
Oh,
with?
at last you,
Stop.
you're exactly right. They're
Hold on.
mathematicians.
Yes,
They
I
don't
get
know
it.
physics.
Okay, so I'm going to give a little bit of a commentary here. This whole argument goes back to Aristotle. You familiar with Aristotle, Jim? You
Know
familiar
about it.
with
Tell me,
Aristotle?
Jim, what you're talking about.
You
Yeah,
familiar
I've
with
heard the name
Aristotle?
Aristotle. Sure.
Okay, so Aristotle conceived of space not the way we conceive space today. Aristotle conceived of space as a kind of a medium, like Vladimir is conceiving a cosmic medium. That's what Aristotle thought space was. He thought it was like more like a medium. And the opposition to Aristotle was that space is a void nothing. Okay. And
How
what
to put
happened
space with
was,
nothing?
hold
With
on.
nothing.
What happened was the scientists decided that Aristotle was wrong and that space is a void nothing. And that's been a problem ever since they did that. Do you understand this, Jim?
Well, that's a very, very interesting point.
Well, what Vladimir is trying to do is he's trying to basically propose a theory that goes back to the Aristotle concept of what space is,
You are absolutely
as
right.
opposed
Thank
to
you.
as opposed to the modern view that space is a void nothing.
So in terms of Ian's question, this cosmic medium then is the ether in Vladimir's work.
I wouldn't use.
Analog to ether. Analog. It's
Okay,
not
the
ether.
problem with using the word ether is it brings in the connotations that space that it's a ether is a material something, and I'm not really sure that Vladimir's ether is a material something. It's kind
It's
of
like particles, on the contrary.
it's a
Ether,
as I
usually, it's nothing. I don't know what does it mean, ether, because there is no any characteristics of ether. No, ether, and that's it. In my case, cosmic medium, saturated with particles, and I named exactly what particles inside of my cosmic medium.
okay.
This is
So
different between
the
ether
issue
and my
here
model.
is that Jim doesn't understand what you mean by cosmic medium, and he's quibbling over the use of the term. Thinks that it's a semantic issue of words, and what you're trying to do is you're trying to define a different concept of what cosmic medium is and what that means. That's different from the way the mainstream has this idea of space as a void nothing.
All right. You're absolutely right. No, let's continue, guys, because of course we have plenty time, but we passed only this one section.
Did you
Let's continue.
understand what I just said, Ian? Did you kind of understand what we're getting at here?
Did I understand what you said, Harry?
Well, do you understand that what Vladimir is saying is he's trying to get he's create his cosmic medium is kind of an ether thing, but it's not the ether that people normally mean when they use that word.
Yes, I mean, to my way of thinking, one might use that term, but I think maybe, if I may speak for Vladimir, correct me if I'm wrong, he's shying away from it because there are certain associations based on past ideas, and he wants to dissociate himself from those. But I mean, ether has properties, as we know. It has electromagnetic properties. So maybe his ideas are not terribly far from it. I mean, what's in a name? Arose by any other name.
Well, he's using the
So to
word
speak.
cosmic medium, which I'm not really sure that he's defined it well enough for people to understand. I think Jim's point is valid in that what we've done is we've been conditioned to think not in terms of Aristotle. We've been trained to think in terms of Democritus. If you're familiar with Democritus, and which their postulates are that what exists is the void and particles moving in the void, and that's the idea that modern physics has adopted, that space is a void nothing, and then there are particles floating around in this nothing. Well, I guess they're not floating, they just move around in a void. Particles exist and the void exists, and those are the two things that exist, and that's our concept of the universe.
It's also problematic that we're talking about space doesn't exist, and yet the WUC seems to have 4 dimensions, 3 of which are spatial coordinates.
Yes, I agree that this is an issue, and my understanding of it is, maybe Vladimir can correct us, but my understanding of it is that as the 4th dimension expands, particles and stuff come into existence, energy, particles, and the cosmic medium comes into existence when the 4th dimension is as the nucleus, as he calls it, nucleus of the world expands into the 4th dimension. And so this creates existence. Okay. But the existence is not this void space concept that we currently have. That's my interpretation of what he's saying.
Yes. You're right. No, maybe let's continue, guys, because we have 3 minutes left.
I think I agree. I think one of the issues is that when your cosmic medium comes into existence, it allows energy to be propagated. You can have electromagnetic waves and interactions and this sort of thing. And so the space that you're talking about is full of energy, right?
Yes. And what is important? We can introduce even space, time, gravitation after 10 to the minus 18 seconds. There is no T0, forget it. And when it happens, when we have the very first ensemble of my particles, then you can introduce classical notion, cosmic medium. Cosmic medium, it's a classical notion. You must have at least ensemble, the very first ensemble of particles, and only then you can start talking about all the classical notions. Space, time, gravitation, it's a classical notions. You cannot talk about them before the very first ensemble exists. Existence means of cosmic medium, the generation by universe, the very first ensemble of particles. Whenever you have ensemble, only then you go, oh, I have medium, because it's already ensemble. It's not each object separately. It's a combination of them ensemble. What is the main point? What is a mixture of quantum physics and classical physics? Classical physics and all the classical notions I'm talking about right now exist only when you have your ensemble of particles. Ensemble. Without ensemble of particles, you cannot talk about it. This is the main point of my model. And I'm talking so many times about this issue. Guys, classical physics, it is ensemble physics. You don't have ensemble, you cannot talk about anything.
So you're postulating that there was a time when ensembles did not exist?
At the very first moment, there is no, it's more than 10 to the minus 18 seconds. Only then you can tell, oh, I have my first ensemble. I can talk about this ensemble as a medium, cosmic medium. Simple like this.
Okay, we're coming up to the end here. I'm not sure that Jim is satisfied, or I think the more we talk about this, the more confusing it gets. That's
It sounds like Big Bang to me.
Oh
yeah,
my goodness.
I can
You
get,
insulting me, Jim. How you come, you know? It's Big Bang model for you. Then you
Well,
don't know what does it mean,
what
Big Bang
basis
model.
on what basis do you assume that there was a time when there were no ensembles?
There is no time. No. First of all, it should be ensemble,
right.
cosmic media. Only then you can introduce.
All right, we're back. Jim, I think the issue is that to get to your question about the difference with the Big Bang, I think the difference is that in Vladimir's model, creation isn't all at once. So the Big Bang assumes that everything comes on into existence in an instant in time, and Vladimir has things coming into existence over time gradually.
Why do we reject the hypothesis that everything was already in existence for forever and ever?
Because it doesn't match up with the observations, the fact that galaxies exist 300 million, fully mature galaxies exist 300 years after the million years after the Big Bang, when they're not supposed to.
Well,
So
that would favor the position that there was no beginning. You see, like if Vladimir were to put in his papers that there is, he should start his papers by saying there is no, saying what he says here. There is no space, there is no time, and which basically challenges everything in physics. You know, he's throwing physics
I don't think
right
that,
out
I
the
don't
door.
think that we're here to basically tell Vladimir how to build his model. I think we're here to sort of try to make understand what he's trying to say. I think we need to understand what Overdwin, or whatever his name is, I can't pronounce it, the Wesson guy. He's come up with this model that Vladimir is sort of essentially saying, I'm following this concept and making some modifications to it, but we don't know really what that model is. And it's not a the Big Bang model assumes everything comes into existence and the universe is expanding after this moment of coming into existence, and then the universe then evolves according to particles come into existence, and then interactions occur, and then matter is created at this period of time. I forget, they have a name for it. And then everything becomes hydrogen and helium. All these particles and energy become hydrogen and helium. And then you have to build galaxies out of the hydrogen and helium. And then out of the hydrogen and helium, there has to become stars. And then the stars have to become galaxies. And then the hydrogen and helium has to evolve into other elements, and it takes millions and billions of years for these elements to be built up out of hydrogen and helium by actions that occur in stars. And the problem with that model is that the galaxies are seen to exist that seem to have high levels of elements in them that is not sufficient time for elements to be created. So you have elements in galaxies 300 million years after the supposed Big Bang, and there's not enough time for these elements to have been created according to the standard model. So there's something wrong with the standard model. So we need another way of looking at it. Does that make sense to you?
Well, what doesn't make sense is throwing out two of the three units of measurement in physics. Where
I'm not
space
sure
doesn't
he's.
exist,
I'm
that
not sure
that
he's
throws out
throwing them
one.
out.
Time doesn't exist, and that
You're
throws
you're
out the other.
claiming that he's throwing things out, and he never said that. I don't know where he said that. I didn't see that in his paper.
Yeah, well, he doesn't put that in his paper, but he states it here that space doesn't exist and time doesn't exist.
I think he means that in the terms of the way that current physicists interpret those things.
Jim,
Mind you,
one
a
more
number of
time.
people claim that time doesn't exist. People like Barber and Nick has taken that under his wing as well recently. I'm just observing. I don't support it or
Well, I
disagree.
think what Jim has raised the issue is why are you inventing new concepts? And I think the answer is because the current concepts are not really clear and they're not really particularly successful. Of course, obviously the establishment claims that their thoughts on these topics are perfectly, but to me, the whole idea of the Big Bang and coming into existence and time and space come into existence according to some geometric model that's totally an idealization. You know what I mean by an idealization? Just
Yes, sure.
something that
I
comes
agree
out
with
of the
you
mind.
with each word of you. I
Well,
agree
it's
with each
something
word
that
of
it's
you.
just a creation of the mind. These idealizations are creations of the mind. You know, Einstein has this theory of geometry, and they say, oh, we can take this theory of geometry and build a universe out of it. And I think that what Vladimir is saying is that he doesn't agree that that's a good way of going about doing it, because these are idealizations that don't really have a lot of physical meaning in his interpretation. So he's trying to give physical meaning to these ideas that's different from the existing physical meaning. Does that make sense to you, Jim?
Well, maybe, but again, we have, why are we throwing out two of the three main units of measurement of physics? There's no space and there's no time.
Well, because as I
What is the
explained
motive
earlier,
to
the
do that?
current way of talking about it isn't very successful relative to the observations.
Well, that's not what he said. He said that those things don't exist. There is no space and there is no
You are
time.
absolutely wrong. How many times I repeated you the same and the same? Gee, it doesn't exist before you have your cosmic medium, before you have something in your hands, classical,
Why do
ensemble.
you assume there
Only
was a
after
time?
it exists
Why,
after that.
why do you assume there was a time when we did not have the cosmic
There
medium?
was no time. It's a stupid question. There is no still time before cosmic medium. No time. No. Time exists only after the first ensemble created. Only then you can introduce. And at that moment, you have your space, time, and everything. Before this ensemble, there is nothing. Nothing. How many times I repeated you the same? And you stay the same. I cannot convince you with all very simple question. You have your space and time after first ensemble was created. That's it. Simple like this.
Why do you assume there was a time before the creation of the
Before,
first
no, no
ensemble?
time.
Now, hold on, Jim. He just said that's not the case. He just told you that. Weren't you listening? Weren't you listening when he said there wasn't anything before?
Well,
He just said that.
and I just asked why does he assume that? On what basis does he assume that?
Because he's building a cosmology and he has to have some assumptions, I think.
There is a
like you would
fundamental
ask-
He has
difference
to-
between the view that things have always existed and there was no beginning, which perhaps I share with you, maybe if you hold me. But there is a fundamental difference between that view and the view that there was nothing pre a particular time. Now, that view is held commonly by the Big Bang theory and indeed also by Vladimir's theory, because they're both dependent upon there being an initial time.
Right.
Exactly.
No
That's
initial
all
time.
I'm saying. That's what
There
I'm
is
saying.
no initial time, guys. There is no T equals 0. No, it's a Big Bang. I don't have T0. I have, because creation, you have everything in one point, Big Bang model. There is nothing before you generated the small nucleus of the world. And you have to wait till you saturate this nucleus with particles enough to create the notion, even cosmic medium. Classical physics, cosmology, astrophysics, it's a classical physics. Classical physics is dealing with ensemble of particles. Simple like this. That's why you cannot talk about quantum mechanics inside of general relativity, inside of my model. It's each object separately. In classical physics, you are talking about the notions based on ensemble of particles. And you don't have ensemble of particles, you don't have space-time, you don't have classical physics at all, because there is nothing to talk about. There is no cosmic medium, there is no classical physics. This is my
this
main
is the
point.
biblical theory. This is the biblical theory.
Biblical. Okay, I'm not Christos. Sorry, I'm Vladimir. I cannot create new religion.
Well, I think this kind of, I kind of understand what Vladimir is getting at. It's, what you don't really want to accept, Jim, is you don't want to accept the assumption or the postulate, is my perception of it. I think Vladimir is saying basically I have to start at some place. And so he's decided to start at the way he's decided. Okay. And he thinks that makes his model work. And you don't really accept that. And so that's kind of where it sits.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're postulating something that happened how many billions of years ago that may or may not have happened when we have the universe right now. Why not start with what we have now?
Well, I think he is. That's the point that you don't quite get. He's saying that
he's talking about there's no space and time before a certain point. And I'm wondering what motivates this.
He's postulating that there's a universe comes into existence at some point in the past that looks like the current universe that we have today. And because of that, he can apply our current classical physics notions. In other words, you have to have a universe that looks like what the universe looks like today at some point. And that's
the biblical theory. Okay, it's like
I don't think that's a biblical theory. I think that's just a theory of being able to do science.
Theory.
Oh, that the universe was created out of nothing. There we go. That's as far as I can see, that's what the Bible is saying. And so,
that's what current physics is saying.
Modern astrophysics.
The Big Bang says the same thing, Jim. So I don't see the biblical argument as being relevant.
I'm sorry, guys. Let me stop you and let me remind you one experiment, what only I could understand and explain. Double slit experiment. You have two slits. You're shooting with particles, photons. If you will see each photon with detector, you will see only shadow of these slits. If you don't touch this ensemble of, you can see pattern, interference pattern. Only in frames of my model, I can explain this experiment. I told, guys, in one case, you're looking for quantum objects. That's why, like a bullets, they're shooting the wall. When you are talking about ensemble of these bullets, about photons, you have your wave and wavelengths in classical notion, then you can see interference. This is a main critical point. Nobody up to now can explain this experiment. Nobody. And only I should. This is your quantum objects. This is a classical physics. You cannot do at once the same quantum physics and classical physics. Quantum physics, you're looking for each photon. You want to see classical physics, take ensemble of them and watch your wavelengths. You have your interference pattern. Jim, how you can explain in your vision this very important. 100 years ago, experiment done 200 years ago. Newton and Bessel and all the guys, they argued for so light is
All right,
photons,
Vladimir,
like
let's.
particle, or
I
it's
think
a wavelength.
I think we're getting off on a tangent here. I understand what you're trying to say. I think what you're trying to say is that in order to understand the world as it exists today, we have to have a notion of classical physics,
Yeah.
which involves an ensemble of particles. Okay,
Yes.
so the problem then is where do these particles come from? Where does this come from? And
It comes from
that's
eternal universe. It's coming from eternal universe.
okay. Well, the point is that there are different notions about how this happens. You have a religious notion, as Jim has pointed out. Okay, and this has been discussed for hundreds of thousands of years by human beings. You have a scientific view of it, which has become now the Big Bang Theory. There are different views of how the world as we see it today came into being. That's what cosmology basically is trying to do. So you have a vision of it. Jim doesn't understand your vision of it. That's my take on this. Okay. And that may be a communications problem, but I think Jim's kind of being a little picky.
Maybe let's continue. I want to give you the whole picture of my model because we started with this one and supposedly now we agree. We agree. We have Big Bang model. We created everything, all the galaxies, everything from nothing in one point. And we accept even now Big Bang model based on this beginning of our universe. It's crazy. In my case, you have creation, continuously created matter in our world. And it was a moment when it was the very first ensemble of this particle. Only then we can talk about cosmic medium and all the planets around cosmic medium.
Okay.
Simple like this.
Let's stop right here. Okay. So this is where the problem is. You've given a very simple overview. Why don't you understand the overview, Jim? What is it that you don't understand?
Well, I think I understand it. It's in the beginning, to quote Vladimir. He just said in the beginning. And so that's the, you might call that the biblical model. The alternative is what Ian stated just a while ago, that the universe has pretty much always been the way it was, the way we see it now. And so that's, you're in the beginning model, okay. Proceed with the in the beginning model. I think it's more or less storytelling and not necessarily astrophysics.
Well, you just defined what cosmology is, which is basically you just said cosmology is nothing more than storytelling, which is essentially what it is. It's science storytelling as opposed to religious storytelling.
Continue my text, guys. We will compare right now Big Bang model and my model, and Jim will better understand what is the differences. Let's go with my text, guys, because we are talking and talking about the same. Please, I put your request to share. Okay. Let's continue immediately, Jim, for you personally. What Big Bang model talking, what I'm talking about. And you will compare apple to apple. It is well known that any theory is based on certain hypotheses. WC and Big Bang model are principally different models with fundamentally different hypotheses. Initial conditions. Big Bang model proposes an initial singularity with infinite energy density of the total matter of the universe, which was created from absolutely nothing. The need for the universe to begin at T0 avoids a temporal singularity, extremely rapid expansion of space-time inflation. There is no center of expansion in 3D universe. Do you have any questions? I don't. WC suggests a fluctuation in the eternal universe that created a fourth spatial dimension nucleus of the world with an extrapolated radius equal to a basic size unit about 10 to the minus 14 meters. You see, the minimum size for classical physics, 10 to the minus 14 meters. Forget everything less than this size, it is nothing. It is quantum physics. I don't understand it at all. The world is a hypersphere of the nucleus and has a finite extrapolated
Well,
energy
let's
density.
stop here again. Do you understand that, Jim, what he just said?
Do I understand? Yes, he's talking about in the beginning. He has an alternate in the beginning theory to the Big Bang in the beginning theory. And for those of us who don't think there was a beginning of the nature that both of these are talking about, it's just pure speculation. Now he's talking about that this fourth spatial dimension expands at the speed of c. Does that mean that we all have infinite mass because we're on the surface of this hypersphere? This is one of the sexier components of the in the beginning model that we don't find in the Bible, the hypersphere. So we're expanding at velocity c. That means that right now all of us are moving at velocity c. So wouldn't we have infinite mass? Or this violates some basic physics ideas, and like why is this being thrown out the window? Like right now, according to this paragraph displayed right now in the middle of the paragraph, the nucleus expands in its fourth spatial dimension at the speed c. Well, if that's true, it means we're all going at the velocity c with respect to the center of this hypersphere. And why don't we have infinite mass? Can Vladimir answer that question?
He doesn't assume
in
special relativity.
three-dimensional space. We are not touching fourth space. We don't know that it exists. In your theory, our special relativity and all this stuff, it's in our observable world, three-dimensional.
Well, special relativity is not my theory.
We are not moving with you with speed c in our three-dimensional space. We don't. That's why your argument is valid for three-dimensional space, for three-dimensional theories and all this stuff. This gravitodynamic constant c, it is parameter. It's not speed in your mind, in my mind, in our three-dimensional space.
So basically, you're asking us to give up all the units of measurement in physics that we've known up to now. Okay, proceed.
Okay, thank you so much.
I don't think he said that, Jim.
Well,
that's
how I
your
interpret
interpretation of what he said.
Exactly. What else would it be?
Well, I don't agree that interpretation is correct.
So the hypersphere can be, we're on the surface of this hypersphere, which is its radius is increasing with the speed of light, c, and there's no consequence of this. All right.
We're not on the surface of a hypersphere. You don't understand what a hypersphere is.
Yes, you're absolutely right. He doesn't understand it. Unbelievable.
Well, if the only rebuttal or answer that can be provided is quote unquote, you don't understand. I would say that you're not even talking science now. This is not even science.
Well, you're quibbling about words, which is what most people do in discussions, I've noticed.
So nobody has a problem with this supposed hypersphere expanding at the velocity of c. Okay.
We're inside the hypersphere and it's expanding around us. So we're not actually moving. The hypersphere is expanding around us, which I
Well,
think
the last I heard from Vlad is that we're on the surface of the hypersphere. Now
that's where you
it.
don't understand what the word surface means, because you don't understand the definitions that are used in the terminology. And so therefore, because you don't understand it, and when I tell you that you don't understand the definitions that are being used, you revert to this argument about, blah, blah, blah. Okay. You have to understand what a hypersphere is before you can correctly interpret what's being said. And since you don't, it's kind of difficult for you to understand what's being said. So I suggest you understand what a hypersphere is. It's not like a surface that you think it is, and that the surface is moving through space. No, that's not what he's saying, I don't think.
Harry, you're absolutely right. Thank you so much for your comments and clarification. I'm so happy that you understand me at least. We started with your serious talk in May last year. For 1 year, you're doing great job for me to clarify my model. I put new notions, new ideas, only because of you, due you. Thank you so much, sir, for understanding of my model. You are a unique guy. Only you can understand deeply what I propose because you have very good knowledge and you are free from our stable bullshits around us with classical physics, with quantum physics,
let's
with all
just
this
proceed
stuff.
on to,
Let's proceed. What is important, there is a minimum size 10 to the minus 14 meters. The world is a hypersphere of the nucleus and has a finite extrapolated energy density 10,000 times less than energy nuclear density. The nucleus expands into its fourth spatial dimension at the speed c, nucleus expansion, a gravitodynamic constant that is identical to the electrodynamic constant c in Maxwell equation, resulting in the even stretching of the world. There is no need for dark energy. You see, it's a very
okay,
important...
hold on, stop. So did you understand what he said there, Jim?
Well, it's his effort to pose in the beginning model.
Well, yes, but why do you object to that?
Why do I object to it? I don't think there's any real evidence to support that.
All right, well, that's pretty clear. So you're saying this is wrong because you don't believe it, you don't want to believe it.
You're right. You don't want to believe it.
I would love to believe it.
Oh, no, you don't. On the contrary, you want to do everything against my theory. And it's not the first time. Gene, please clarify your brains. Be ready to see something new and to accept it. Because I told you, there are some hypotheses. There's a hypothesis. Any theory based on hypothesis. That's why
your arguments are based upon religious concepts.
And trying to understand the theory
you want people
independently
to
what
accept
you
what
know
you're
about.
saying, and just based upon your authority. And well, that's basically a religious idea. And so, well, proceed, Vlad. You know.
You're saying that authority is a religious idea. You're saying authority is a religious idea.
I'm saying that the whole idea of the in the beginning theory of the universe.
Well, it seems to me it's a scientific idea since the Big Bang was created. So you're saying the Big Bang is a religious idea?
Well, it's an in the beginning idea. You could call it religious or pseudoscience. You could call it many things, I suppose.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. Would you be happier if Vladimir just said, I I don't postulate what happened prior to the beginning of the world. I don't postulate a creation event. We're just going to start there for the purposes of description.
Well, that's his in the beginning theory. He can proceed with it. I have no objection to him proceeding.
Well, but
Let's continue.
you do have an objection. You claim it's a religious theory and therefore unacceptable.
Well, it's unacceptable because I don't think there's evidence for it.
Well,
Harry, you told exactly the truth. I absolutely agree with you with each word of your comment. You're absolutely right. Let me tell you only, and you will see the difference. You see, we have our expansion with C, a gravitodynamic constant of this fourth dimension. And we have our stretching of the surface because of this expansion. But what is important? In Big Bang model, for 10 to the minus 34 seconds, we have inflation and expansion of the world to 93 billion light years diameter. It's a crazy. In my case, you have your stretching of your space continuously with speed c, continuously stretching, stretching, and stretching. There is no dark energy. There is nothing to do about it. You can see the stretching of the space continuously happen, not for 10 to the minus 34 seconds to 93 billion light years. No, continuously. We have this crazy Big Bang model. I propose normal, real numbers for the same idea. Inflation, 93 billion light years. No, guys, we have a continuous inflation, and only after 13.8 billion light years, we have our stretching 13.8 billion years. That's simple like this.
It's apparently not that simple.
We have so crazy the Big Bang model, and we have something real, physical. There are some parameters behind expansion, behind the stretching and all this stuff.
All right, let me stop you here. Now, it's pretty clear that that the issue is that you have to, you've got observable things that you need to explain, right? Okay. There's physical properties. Now, what has bothered me about what you're saying is you claim that you don't explain the redshift, but it seems to me that in a way you're trying to explain the redshift. Something is happening in the universe that is causing it to evolve and change. Okay. And I think that's what your model is trying to address. Same as the Big Bang model is trying to address, that the universe isn't a steady thing that's not changing, that it's changing with time. That's, I think, your primary hypothesis, that the universe is changing with time, and then you're trying to fit that principle with make it into a model that involves classical physics concepts. Is that right?
Yes, it's correct. Let me tell you why we need expansion, why I need in my theory expansion. Because there is no matter. There is no matter. You must have all the time matter. If you have no expansion, suppose, then you will saturate some small ball with all this energy, with all these galaxies. No. You see, the main point is you cannot go without expansion, not because of redshift. In my theory, there is no redshift as a notion even. In my case, expansion means you have more size of your surface and you have more matter energy inside of this surface. What does it mean? You can build new galaxies, new superclasses, and all this stuff. If you have no material, you cannot do anything about it. That's why expansion of this four nucleus and stretching of the world is the way how to accumulate new matter from the universe. If there is no expansion of the four nucleus and stretching of our sphere, there is no way to get new matter, new energy inside of our world. Expansion, it's not redshift, blue shift. No. Expansion, this is a way how to create continuously matter in our world. You have your expansion, and you saturate this stretching surface with a new energy, with a new matter.
So you're
Guys,
saying
it
that
is-
if we increase the volume of something, matter will be created to fill in that volume. That's what you're saying.
Okay, I agree with you. Okay, I agree. At least something I agree. There is no stretching. There is no expansion of our world, guys. Expansion, there is only of nucleus. Center of expansion, let me continue and you will see where is the center of expansion, because we always be ahead of my text. Let's continue and you will see the difference. Structure of observable world. Big Bang model assumes an almost infinite homogeneous and isotropic universe around the initial singularity with age 13.787 billion years. The observable universe is a spherical region of the universe consisting of all matter that can be observed from the Earth with a diameter of 93 billion light years. We can see by telescope right now 13.7 billion light years. Nevertheless, they have 93 billion light years observable world. How to observe it? It's a geometry, it's a mathematics. There is no physics at all. WC describes the finite, boundless world that is the hypersphere of the 4D nucleus with a three-dimensional surface volume. You see, surface volume equals to this. It's an equation for hypersphere. There is a volume of this hypersphere in our three-body brains, 2 pi squared r cubed. The absolute age of observable world is 14.226 billion years. Compare what we have in the Big Bang model and what is in my model. Observable world is the 3D Hubble bubble with a radius 14.226 billion light years. The volume, standard formula, and the total volume of observable world, this one. It is patchwork quilt of various main luminous superclusters. It's more than 1,000. The ratio of one volume to the other one is equal pi. It means that in the hypersphere world could exist 3 parallel worlds with the same laws of physics, because all points of the hypersphere are equivalent and there are no preferred centers in it. It's a very important issue because there are some idea about parallel world, and I showed that in the hypersphere world, what I'm talking about, where we can have enough volume for 3 separate observable worlds with a diameter 14.226 billion light years. You see, it's a very important issue that the hypersphere overall, we are not the hypersphere world. Inside of this hypersphere world, we have 3 parallel worlds, and each of them like a Hubble bubble, 3-dimensional Hubble bubble. And we live with you, James, with inside of this Hubble bubble, like you have a spots on this hypersphere world, you have 3 different spots. And they're independent. They can do whatever they want, and we don't know even they exist. But there is some in my microwave background radiation. Later, I will talk about this idea of parallel worlds. And what is important, even this idea of parallel worlds, it's inside of my understanding of the hypersphere world. Hypersphere world is the overall surface of our nucleus. Our observable world is a Hubble bubble inside of this surface, hypersphere surface, and we have enough room for 2 more. You see the difference. Hypersphere world, it's more than we live in. We live in a 3-dimensional Hubble bubble that is our observable world. It's a very important issue. Okay, let's continue. The microwave background radiation cold spot is an anomalous region in the cosmic ambient that appears significantly larger and colder than expected. This region is approximately 70 microkelvin colder than the average ambient temperature of 2.725 Kelvin. Whereas typical temperature fluctuations have a root mean square of only 18 microkelvins. At certain points of the cold spot reaches a temperature deficit of 140 microkelvin below the average. A controversial hypothesis proposed by Mersini-Hugdon suggests that the cold spot is an unmistakable imprint of another universe beyond the edge of our own. If validated, this would provide the first empirical evidence supporting the existence of a parallel universe, a concept that had previously been explored only in theoretical models. Within the framework of WC, this anomaly can be interpreted as a consequence of interactions with parallel worlds. You see how it's important. There is such an idea, theoretical.
Well, that was an abrupt ending. Well, welcome back.
Please, let's go.
Okay, I think we're getting into the weeds here with this discussion here. Can we move ahead a little bit? This
Yes, let's move, guys, because I want to
too
go to the end.
parallel
You know,
worlds. I think this parallel worlds thing is just way too. I don't see that it really. I don't understand what you're talking about, and I just think it's kind of just more confusion and more stuff for people like Jim to quibble with.
you're absolutely right. But let me remind you, a controversial hypothesis. She wants to continue. I gave you the room. That's it. I'm not in business of parallel worlds.
All right, let's move on to the next section.
Hypothesis, let them continue because my model can accept it. If you prove it, go. If don't, I'm inside of the 3D Hubble bubble. I'm myself. You guys too. That's it. Simple as this. But if she wants to continue, then you have your room. Continue. Cosmic medium of observable world. Big Bang model often implies a vacuum state in the universe. There is no intergalactic whatever. There is vacuum. And what is important, the main advantage of Einstein theory, that photons can be transmitted without any space, without any medium, without any ether. I don't know how. He doesn't know to. He didn't know to.
All right, let's stop here.
WC.
Now we're back to what we were talking about in the beginning that Jim raised the issue, and that is this idea of what space is. Okay. And what you're saying is Big Bang often implies a vacuum state in the universe. Well, this business of vacuum state, I don't know what that means. The Big Bang theory is based on the Democritus philosophy of understanding existence, which is there's only two things, a void and particles that move around in the void. And you're saying that's not my model. Are we clear about that?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so what is your model? Proposes that cosmic medium. So you have a different, so your cosmic medium is space as opposed to, so substitute cosmic medium for the word space in the mainstream view. Is that correct?
Flavor of classical physics, you will see later.
Hold on. Is it correct to say that you're going to propose cosmic medium as a substitute for the word space as normally used in scientific discussion? Is that correct or not correct?
Cosmic medium cannot exist without space. It's obvious. You're absolutely right. Cosmic medium, what is around us, cosmic medium, is filling out the notion of space. There is notion of space. There is how to measure the space.
Well,
So you're saying, but
Our air in our room. This air doesn't exist if you have no walls of our room.
so you're saying that before the beginning, there was no space.
There was no space before cosmic medium. Cosmic medium you must have first of all, and only then you can talk about these notions. Guys, 1,000 times I repeated the same definition. There is nothing before cosmic medium generated. You have cosmic medium, then you can introduce all these notions. There is no cosmic medium, there is nothing to talk. It will be later in my text. Let's continue, guys, because we have only 40 minutes and I want to be to the end.
We're not going to get to the end. Okay?
We will.
Well, the point is that if this isn't really clear, it's kind of pointless to continue on if you don't understand the fundamental idea here.
You're right. You're right. Okay, let's continue. Whenever you will tell continue, I will do it, Harry.
Well, I think the most dramatic postulates or assertions that Vlad is making, and they're quite dramatic, is that before a certain beginning point, there was no space, and I guess no time either. And that's, perhaps, he should lead off with that whole idea, because that's a very dramatic assertion, I think.
Well, I think he's been
and
saying
one
that.
would wonder why would anybody make such an assertion? On what basis?
Well, I don't understand what you're saying. What do you mean?
He's saying that before the beginning, to use his own words, there's no space, and I guess no time also, and no matter. And so there you've got the three units of measurement in classical physics out the window. And so I think, Vlad should start with that idea. That's seems to be a core idea, a very dramatic assertion to make. And, let him make it. That's fine. I'm just trying to give him credit where credit is due. I think that is probably is the premier assertion that he's making, that there was a beginning, and before that beginning, space, time, and mass did not even exist. I mean, that's really, in a nutshell, what WUC is saying. Is that correct?
What do you think? Is it correct or no?
Well, he's asking you is what his interpretation is correct. See, understanding you.
Let me tell you, you cannot ask even the question about what was before the beginning. There is no such question.
Okay.
Okay,
exactly.
I'll accept that. I'll accept
exactly.
You're talking about space, time, and so on
and
so on, but you cannot even ask this question. I told you many times, 1,001 times, that if you have no cosmic medium, you cannot talk about these notions at all. Let me finish. You will see this section will be finished with this sentence, with this statement. You cannot ask even this question. There is no notions at all. There is no classical physics. I told you it's much more important to understand without cosmic medium, there is no classical physics. That's it. And cosmology, astrophysics, it is what? Classical physics. You cannot tell anything about if it doesn't exist. There is no classical physics. What are you talking about? I don't know. I'm classical object, you too. Can you talk about something in classical physics if you don't have classical physics? No. What is the problem with
this is the conundrum that the Big Bang has and physics has in general, which is, they need a physical law to explain why physical laws came into existence, which is basically, a conundrum that can't be solved.
No, let's continue. proposes that cosmic medium, which is both homogeneous and isotropic, while the distribution of macro objects is spatially inhomogeneous, anisotropic, and temporally non-simultaneous. You see the difference? Cosmic medium consists of protons, electrons, photons, neutrinos, and UC particles, previously referred to as dark matter particles. The rejection of the luminiferous ether in 1905 was a critical moment for classical physics. However, cosmic medium proposed by WC could be considered a revival of this concept, acting as a savior for classical physics. I've done a very solid statement. If you have nothing to say.
Okay, so what does this mean? Do you know what this means, Jim?
Well, he seems to be saying that the what astrophysicists call intergalactic space consists of very few particles, and that it's isotropic. But then he immediately says that the macro objects are not isotropic, that they're inhomogeneous, anisotropic, and temporally non-simultaneous, whatever all that means. It's okay. He's giving a biblical in the beginning theory, and fine. You know, as far as I'm concerned, this is like Big Bang 2. You know, we've got Big Bang 1, and then Vlad has another alternative approach to in the beginning, and let's wait until the next big telescope comes out there and blast this 14 billion year time frame that the beginning supposedly occurred at out of the water, and we'll then I guess modify everything to insist that there was a beginning and in the beginning theory.
Well, I think you're going a little overboard with this. I think what Vladimir is saying is that we can't really have physics until we have a cosmic medium, and that there has, and he's saying that physics starts to happen at a certain point in time. He's postulating that physics comes into existence, not necessarily, in a religious sense. He's saying, I think, that you can't talk about physics and you can't talk about physical laws that apply to the universe unless you have some starting point. And before that starting point, you can't talk about physical laws.
Well, that's exactly how I understand it, Harry, that he is proposing an in the beginning theory, so that he can proceed with that.
I don't think that's a propose of in the beginning theory. I think he's just saying we can't do physics unless we have a starting point for doing physics. That's not a in the beginning, as you would say, implying religious context to it.
Well, he gives a time of 14 some odd billion years. That seems to be sort of in the beginning to me, but
that's when classical physical laws start to apply, as I understand it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
So it's definitely an in the beginning theory. Okay.
Not in the beginning in the sense of religion.
Well, I guess it's in the beginning in the sense of science.
Correct.
Then. And I guess the data will either accept or reject it as we get more data.
Could we drill down just for a second the avoidance of the term ether? I mean, you say that CM could be considered a revival of this concept. Just as conventionally, they might use terms like quantum foam or something like that, because actually, as I've experienced to my personally, use of a term ether could be considered a career ruining phenomenon. It could actually destroy careers. People have actually admitted that to me privately. Now, is this because it has connotations with Aristotle, or it has connotations with classical physics? I mean, what's the reason for using CM instead of ether?
I think because we don't know what ether as a word means.
You're absolutely right. We don't know what does it mean either. We
So
don't know.
he's trying to say, if I use, say, I have this argument, with people, who propose ether, and they talk about ether, and they, say all these things, but what is it? They don't really define what it is. They try to define it and say my equations describe the ether, but they can't really define what it is. What is it? And so I think what Vladimir
Uh, at last, we have a difference between ether and cosmic medium. Ether, I don't know what does it mean. I don't know. Harry too.
Well, I
And
think
cosmic
That's the
medium
function of science,
saturated with the particles.
to try to find out its properties and what it means. But it's just a postulation for the Aristotelian, if you like, non-vacuous nature of space. Now, it could be argued that what is it? Create cosmic medium. We don't know what that means either. It's the function of science to find out what these things are. Once we establish the postulate that space isn't empty.
I think what Vladimir is trying to do is he's trying to provide that definition, but I suspect that it's not satisfactory to all of us. Does that make sense to you, Ian?
Yes, it probably does, Harry.
Understand.
But I think, if I may suggest, that I think, you haven't said it, Vladimir, but I think you might be avoiding the term because it has some baggage with it. It has some.
I think that's right.
Is that correct? Yeah. Okay. Well, okay. We live with that for the moment then, Harry.
Well, as Vladimir says, he doesn't know what the word means. So if he uses the word, then that means that you or anybody else can put in there what they think it means, right? And that necessarily wouldn't be what Vladimir thought it to mean. So Vladimir's ideas might not be what your idea would be if he said the word ether.
Yeah, I could understand that argument. Although in my case, I do use the term, but I
know.
warn people. You know that, but I'd warn people that my usage is not necessarily coterminous with what other people think, or even what people thought in the past. But okay, if you feel more comfortable, if Vladimir feels.
I think though that really at this point, I think this is kind of the real crux of the issue, and that is we don't know what this cosmic medium is, and I don't think Vladimir really is able to define it, because if classical physics knew what it is, then he would be able to give a clear definition of what it is. But I don't think classical physics knows what it is. And people say, well, it's the ether, and then you have all these different theories of the ether, and mainstream kind of avoids it, but then they put it back by talking about, cosmic foam, and there's this what are these things that they say replace the ether, but they're quantum mechanics ideas. I forget exactly some of the words they use.
But there might be other coterminous elements with regard to the cosmic medium. I mean, I might ask one thing. Is it luminiferous? Is the cosmic medium, according to the theory, the medium which permits a luminiferous or electromagnetic wave to propagate?
It's correct.
Okay,
It
well,
can.
it seems so similar to the concept of the ether.
Look, guys, cosmic medium, I gave a very good definition. When we can introduce it, when we have the very first ensemble of particles. That's why it's not true. Cosmic medium has a good definition. You have the first ensemble of particles, you can introduce notion cosmic medium. And you saturated this cosmic medium with ensembles of all the particles around. That's it, simple as this. That's why the notion cosmic medium, it's not ether. or luminiferous ether. We don't know what does it mean. It may transverse use light and so on and so on. But cosmic medium, ensemble of particles. Instead of ensemble of particles, and I gave you the names of these particles, you can name it cosmic medium, ensemble of particles.
But you do allocate some properties to it, don't you? I've forgotten now, but don't you give some values for the density of this medium?
Right. Well, his
Give you
theory.
later if I will go to my text, because of course it's equals to critical energy density and all this stuff. Of course, I gave all the parameters, but we are not even halfway to my text.
Well,
Guys.
we're
It's
not,
a very
we're
good
not,
question.
we're not really getting there. I mean, we don't have. I don't think we're going to get to the end, but I think we're at fundamental
No, it's
questions.
okay. It's okay.
But the cosmic medium is more than it also has a property that has energy associated with it, and that energy
Yes.
is being converted into particles over time. So we have a container that contains energy. So the cosmic medium is the energy that exists, and then that's getting converted into particles. That's my understanding of what you're talking about, right?
Yes. Harry, let me tell you, you told right now container. Hypersphere, I told many times, finite, boundless, finite. That's why even energy-wise, hypersphere is some number. There is no infinity. There is no instabilities and all this stuff. It's a very important issue, guys. We have even in overall hypersphere definite number of energy. There is no infinities at all. It's
Right.
very important. You can name this hypersphere as a container for all these particles created by universe. You have your ensembles of particles, then you can introduce all these notions: gravitation, time, space. What is important? All the physical laws, they based on on cosmic medium only. Macro objects like your particles in the water. You have, suppose, the water. Inside of this water, there are some particles. Behavior of water doesn't depend on them. There is macro objects. They're very small. Matter-wise, in our macro objects, it's only 2.4% of energy, 2.4% only. All the rest is a cosmic medium around. That's why even macro objects, they're small against cosmic medium. But what is important? I don't have any infinities, no black holes, no initial singularity, nothing. There is a finite, boundless container. Harry, I like your word container, filled out with ensembles of particles. And I named all these particles.
Okay.
Let's continue. Oh, my goodness.
All right. So we're at conservation laws.
Conservation laws.
So conservation laws have to, at some point we're talking classical physics. We're talking classical conservation laws. So we're saying that the laws of physics apply now, that we have a cosmic medium, we have particles in the cosmic medium, and we have stuff in the universe, and we have energy in the universe, and our laws of classical physics apply, and these laws are conservation laws, right?
Yes. Let's continue. Big Bang model does not explicitly emphasize the creation and conservation of angular momentum of its foundation principle, in its foundational principle. There is no mention in the basic of this Big Bang model. There is no. And by the way, all the galaxies rotated, our Milky Way, all the other galaxies, superclusters, all the rotational macrostructures. No mention even at all.
Okay, so what you're claiming here is that you're going to solve a problem that's a gaping hole in Big Bang model, The Big Bang
Yes.
doesn't explain how things rotate in the universe.
They don't. It's a pollution for them. Once, many months ago, we named it a pollution. Angular momentum, it's a pollution for Big Bang model. They don't care about it. They throw it away, forget about it. But there is no mechanism how to create it, and there is no way to conserve something if you don't know how to create it.
Well, don't they have some theories about the universe rotating and that sort of thing? And I think those are minority ideas.
It's minority ideas of some dissidents like ourselves.
Okay, so the Big Bang model doesn't talk about angular momentum, which is an observational fact. So we have an observational fact.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, stars rotate, planets rotate, galaxies rotate.
Yes.
Galaxy, all these objects are rotating. What does it mean? Where does this rotational where does it come from? We know it exists, but they don't explain it. Okay.
Yes, but what is important, let me tell you, it's not only rotation of galaxies. These galaxies rotate against the center of supercluster. Our galaxy, with all the mass going around Virgo supercluster with velocity, with speed, 400 kilometers per second. It's so huge orbital angular momentum, and nobody never even mentioned it. And it's a measured result. I refer to this NASA paper about this moving the whole galaxy, moving around the center of Virgo supercluster with 400 kilometers per second. And where is it? It can took from this rotational and angular orbital angular momentum.
Okay,
Nobody
so
talking
now
about it.
you're going to try to come up with some kind of thesis to explain this in your
Yes,
model.
I gave the model which can explain where they took this rotational angular momentum, how they got all the galaxies, why they're going against not initial singularity. They're moving around their supercluster center. And in this supercluster, it's 10 to the power 15 it's mass of the sun. It's a huge union. And all these galaxies, like our planets in our solar system, rotating orbital angular momentum they have around the center of supercluster. Where they took it from? Where? This is the main point. This is the main problem for Big Bang models. They don't know anything about angular momentum. That's why they are trying to create these galaxies for so short time. I will show you that in my model, we have enough time to collect all the matter, all the rotational angular momentum for supercluster to generate these galaxies after 440 million years. 0.44 billion light years, we have this so-named invisible dark epoch when all these superclasses they could collect matter, energy, and rotational angular momentum. And then it will start to spread all this rotational angular momentum for their satellites. And galaxies are satellites of supercluster, huge ball, the first one, to split all your accumulated rotational angular momentum to orbital and rotational angular momentum of all these galaxies around. This is the mechanism how to create our galaxies and how to create rotational and orbital angular momentum for galaxies in my model. Let's continue, guys. Let's finish at least this, section because, I would like to have some stop point, at least to the section number 3. Let's pass section 2 and then maybe we'll stop. We'll continue maybe next time. I don't know what will be your proposal, Harry. Conservation laws stands out as the only cosmological model that provides a mechanism for angular momentum creation and is consistent with the fundamental law of its conservation. Macro object formation. Big Bang
What is
model.
that mechanism?
Let me continue, you will see. Because what? You are in a hurry. Because what? You think I will not name it? Of course I will. Okay, let me continue, please, guys. After each sentence, it's too much. Okay, I will show you. Oh, macro objects formation. Macro objects form from the bottom, extrasolar systems, to up to galaxies and superclusters. It's a Big Bang model. In my model, macro objects form from the top, superclusters, down to galaxies and extrasolar systems, due to answering your questions. The next sentence, to an explosive volcanic rotational fission of superclusters over spinning cores made up of UC particles, which were created by the universe during the dark invisible epoch for 0.44 billion years. The formation of galaxies and extrasolar systems is not a process that concluded ages ago. Instead, it is ongoing. Jim, you see how we are in a hurry. Next sentence, and I will answer you. Please have your patience and at least some respect to me. You know, the second sentence will explain you what is going on and how. It's written right now. And we have plenty time to accumulate all this rotational angular momentum for this big ball of our supercluster, and then to have volcanic explosion of all the galaxies around and share my accumulated in a big ball of our nucleus of supercluster to split all this rotational angular momentum to all the galaxies for their orbital angular momentum and rotational angular momentum. You see, there is a mechanism how to create not only rotational and orbital angular, how to create our superclusters, first of all, then to create galaxies, and then to have our solar systems and all the extrasolar systems. You see what I mean? It's very important. In my model, our formation is, okay, in conclusion, let me finish, because I'm in a hurry myself. WC presents a radically different approach to understanding observable world compared to Big Bang model, challenging long-held assumptions and offering new perspectives on the fundamental nature of cosmology and classical physics. The hypotheses of Big Bang model are mathematical, while those of WC are more physical in nature. Both models may seem incredible, but there is a key difference. Big Bang model fails to explain many experimental results observed by contemporary astronomy, whereas WC does. It's my answer to all your questions before. You see, it's written, yeah, for you it's a crazy, by biblical or whatever it is. I don't mind. You can name it whatever. There are some hypotheses. But in my case, hypothesis based on some physical numbers. There is an explanation, at least for macro objects formation, even how to do formation. There is nothing in Big Bang model. There is no angular momentum. There are a lot of, there is no even initial singularity. Show in their model where is this initial singularity. I don't know. Maybe you know. I don't.
Okay,
Simple like
we
this.
got only a few minutes left here, 7 minutes or so.
That's why, you know, if you will keep patient a little bit, Jim, you will see everything in my model. You know, I cannot tell you in one sentence everything. At least one section you can hear, and only then to ask this question. You see, from the beginning, I ask you guys, let's read section. And then after section, ask me the questions. Jim, you are impatient. You want to have everything in one sentence. I told one sentence, immediately tell me everything. Please have your patience. Then you will understand everything. I try to do my best with this. Maybe final, maybe another one I will do it. Or
okay, I have a comment here where you say the hypotheses of Big Bang model are mathematical, while those of WUC are more physical in nature. I can see why. You know, to me, that really just jumps out at me. If I was a mainstream physicist, I'd be really upset seeing that. How dare you say that? I'm sure they think that their hypothesis of Big Bang model are purely scientific and physical.
no. Infinite energy density, initial singularity, inflation, all this bullshit.
Yeah, well, that's
They're not
to me,
physical.
that's the
They're not
issue. The issue
physical.
is dealing with people who don't really want to see that their thinking that they've adopted is correct and true might be flawed in some way. They don't really want to see that.
You're correct. You're right.
So how
But
do you?
similarly, you could also say, criticizing the mainstream, that their systems, the Big Bang model, defies the laws of mathematics because it produces singularities and divisions by
Right,
zero.
that's what he's trying to say. Yeah, yeah, that's a good point, Ian. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, that's kind of. Uh, I
Both
kind of
ways.
see I kind of see what Vladimir is trying to say. He's trying to say instead of our physics is sort of and just kind of like beating on the drum. Einstein sort of turned physics into mathematics, but I actually think it started before then with Maxwell in the 19th century, where everything became this mathematics. These mathematicians started with all these equations and they developed these ideas about electromagnetism, and it was all mathematics. And somehow or another, physics became mathematics. And so, you know, you don't really like that idea, but I think physicists like that idea. How you going? I think it's hard to say this. I don't see physicists or any of these people who consider themselves good scientists are going to buy into the idea that your theory is more physical in nature. What makes your theory more physical in nature?
There are real numbers. There is no infinities at all. Not in space, not in time, not inflation, no initial singularity, nothing. Physics, it's a numbers. Physics, it's experimental science. Experiment you cannot do without definitions of some numbers. And in more and more model, there is no infinities at all. Even the whole hypersphere is a finite, boundless world. Finite. There is no infinity. There is no place for infinities. There is no place for black holes, for this, super black holes and all this stuff. All of these infinities cut, rejected, forget about them because it is exactly mathematics. It is not physics. Physics means give me the number.
Yeah, I kind of have to go along with the business about black holes. That's a hypothetical mathematical object, and I'm not sure that's the best example. That's they pretty much accepted black holes exist in reality now because they must, according to their mathematics. I'm not sure you're going to win on that argument, although I'm
I
sympathetic.
don't want to talk about black holes at all. It's a bullshit. There is none. Black holes, even our Milky Way galaxy, super black hole, not accumulating matter, absorbing it. On the contrary, you have all the matter going around. Even there are some solar system or extrasolar system was shoot from the center of Milky Way galaxy. How come black hole, instead of absorbing energy, it's going out this matter from our
Well,
super
they've convinced
black hole?
themselves with their ways of interpreting things and the use of words that there's a black hole at the center of a Milky Way galaxy because what else could it be? I've talked about this too much. It does strike me as absurd that an entity
Sure.
that's
Yes.
purely fictional, invented out of mathematical symbology, exists because they say so.
Yeah. Let me tell you about Fermi bubbles. They have
But
all the
still, we're getting
particles
to the
going from the center of the galaxy to Fermi bubbles, and no explanation. How come black hole can evaporate all these particles and saturate huge, huge Fermi bubbles? They have the size approximately the same as the size of our galaxy. And they have this matter, they have this gamma radiation. Where it came from? I don't know, man. What kind of black hole that can create even bubbles, Fermi bubbles around? How come?
Well, they need to explain things with physics that they believe is true. So since they've convinced everybody that black holes exist, and they've convinced
No.
everybody that fusion processes are the power sources of stars, and stars uh, process hydrogen to create heavier metals.